Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us again here at SNEED-CAST. I know you're used to seeing Alexa. Believe it or not, she took some vacation time, so we had to fill in, and I was the best sub they could find. We have a great episode for you today. Bernie Dahlin from Double Take Salsa is joining us. He's been a customer for a couple of years. He's going to tell us about his journey from making salsas for friends and family as gifts for the holidays, through farmers markets to his first local co-op, and now into Target, Hy-Vee, and other major grocery stores. Really great conversation with Bernie coming up. So tune in and check it out. And here it comes. So first and foremost, Bernie, I want to thank you for your time. To have a little chat with us here on our SNEED-CAST, a little B2B podcast. So we have Bernie from Double Take Salsa joining us. Bernie's been a customer with us for a little over a year now, who makes homemade hot sauces and salsas up in Minnesota. And he's been generous enough with his time to give us a chance to talk with him a little bit about his business and how it got started and how he got to where he is today. I'll kind of set the stage a little bit, Bernie, before my first question. Reading up about your company, it reminded me very much of so many of our customers. We have a lot of customers, small to medium-sized businesses like yours that started making a homemade product that they were giving out to friends and family, and then got into farmers markets and things of that nature, and then eventually just kind of exploding from there. So I'd love to kind of hear your origin story, so to speak, and then we can kind of jump in from there.
Kind of the same story that you've heard from a lot of people, probably. I love salsa and I love hot sauce, and I just started making it one year after growing some tomatoes for the first time, and I just had an abundance of tomatoes and just decided, you know what, let's just make some salsa because everybody loves salsa, and started bringing it into the office and sharing it, and kept doing that. And then when winter came and the harvest was done, we I just started buying salsa because I realized it was so cool to kind of socialize around a bowl of salsa and some chips. And I started realizing that the stuff that I was buying was like really, really average. And I was thinking that I could just make it better.
So it started with salsa, and then eventually got into hot sauces. How long between from that stage till you get to farmers markets? Like, what was that kind of period like, and what was the ultimate impetus that made you decide, let's give this, that this is more than just something we give out to friends and family for Christmas and such?
Yeah. It actually was a couple of years because I had a career in banking, believe it or not. And that was going great, making money and whatever. So it was more just a fun hobby. But then I started like kind of I want to say perfecting my recipe. And what I mean by that is not that it's perfect necessarily, but that I was like weighing the produce, weighing the ingredients rather than 7 tomatoes and 1 onion.
Right.
You would actually weigh it, and I was writing down my recipes rather than just kind of shooting from the hip. And I got to a spot where I thought that this this recipe is really good, and the way I kind of realized that is a lot of people were asking for it, like, hey, next time you do this, let me buy like 4 jars from you, and or let me do this. And I'm like, that's not really what I'm going into this for. And you know I don't know. It's just one of those things. So, but that was years. I mean, that was a couple of years, at least 2 to 3 years, that I was just kind of having fun with it. And then all of a sudden one day I was just like, you know what? Why don't I give it a try? Maybe I could do this. Maybe I could make a bunch and sell it and see what happens.
Gotcha. And that was it. So was that at a farmer's market? You gave it your first attempt, or?
Yeah, essentially it was kind of a neighborhood kind of like spring event, like welcome back to kids playing outside and a festival and stuff like that. But yep, it was just a neighborhood festival, and it went really well. And then that's right after that I decided to get into doing farmers markets.
Right. And then at this stage, are you still making everything at home, or do you have like a commercial kitchen that you're renting out, or what does manufacturing and packaging look like in these early stages?
Yeah, so everything was being made at home. We only had a few salsas and one hot sauce, and or maybe two hot sauces at this point. And throughout the summer, I was making everything at home all the way up until about mid-September, and it kept growing every week, and it was exciting. And all the money would go right back into just making more because whatever. I didn't need to make money off of this. I just wanted to do it better and make it better. So
Right.
everything was at home, and that's always a challenge because you're doing it, and the family's there, and we had two little girls at the time, and
Right.
when you start making hot sauce in the house, people don't always love that.
Oh, I'm starting to think about, yeah, the steam and all the pepper and the air and everything. Certainly.
Exactly. So yeah, we and then I realized that maybe I should try to get into a commercial kitchen and get my, because if I do that, or I should say, I should back up and say, if I wanted to get into grocery stores and retail shops, I was going to have to, get certified through the FDA. And in order to get certified through the FDA, you'd need to be, or at least at that point, you had to have a commercial kitchen.
Right. So I remember one thing I made a note about here when I was reading some articles and things on your blog. I know you had mentioned about in the beginning the Minnesota has some cottage food laws that are very beneficial for small businesses and entrepreneurs like yourself. Can you tell us a little bit more about kind of what the benefits are there, and perhaps maybe there's some other folks like yourself in the Minnesota area, or maybe within their own states, they should be looking for similar types of advantages that can help them out in the beginning stages?
Yeah, I don't know much about any other state stuff, and I only know what I've done, of
Right.
course.
Sure.
But the cottage law, or the gosh, I can't remember what they called it it wasn't the cottage bill back then, but basically this is, we're from the Midwest, we're from Minnesota up north, and there are a lot of farmers, and there's a lot of small towns in Minnesota, and these people would, like, you know Janice would come down with her pickles that she made, and Janice doesn't want to go through all this FDA, certification and all that kind of stuff, but she's been doing it for 30 years. She's been watching her grandma and her mom do it for decades as well. It's probably made the exact way it should be. And the government, or the state, I should say, I think basically said, you know what? If we know they're going to do this, regardless on if they have, if they go through the FDA or anything like that. And, um, but they're probably not going to do that. They're probably not going to go through all the pain because it is hard, and it costs actually a lot of money to get started. I mean, and when I say a lot of money, it's like $1,000 plus a lot of time, which $1,000 isn't a ton of money. But if you're just selling a dozen pickle jars, you're not making that $1,000. It's not worth it for you. So that's kind of what the states decided to do. They said, well, let's look at it and let's license them, and we can get a little money and also tell them how, here's a couple things you have to do, and those things might cost you 50 to $100, not 1,000. So it's a
Right.
really good way to kind of get your foot in the door and crank it out as long as you can. The really nice thing is they've expanded the sales numbers. They used to have like an annual sales cap. Now, again, they don't, I mean, you tell them what you sold that year. So it's not as if these things are tracked extremely well. But it used to be like ten to $15,000 a year. And now it's, I think, pushed up to like $40,000 a year. So, um, that's a really good thing for the small maker who's trying to get into it. And frankly, my my probably biggest bit of advice is, if you're going to start out and try this and do it, save your cash as much as you can. Do it as long as you can. Cook out of your home as long as you can,
Right.
and do all that stuff, because the minute that you start renting a kitchen, it's $700 a month, every month, no matter what. And you're on a contract, and then you're doing the FDA stuff, and before you know it, over that year you spent $10,000, and you're kind of wondering, like, oh, this business kind of stinks, but it doesn't stink. it's just tough to start out if you don't have the
Right.
capital, you know.
Yep.
So do it as long as you can with the local laws, if you
Legit.
have them available to you.
Minimize overhead and just maximize cash flow as much as possible.
And save the cash flow.
Yeah, save the cash flow. Kind of leads me to another question then, Bernie. So, like, obviously, it kind of sounds, like in traditional sense, it started off as what they call side hustle. And then, so at what point do you get from that stage of, okay, like now there's enough, profitability, there's enough revenue and everything here where like now, and then also, of course, in terms of your time, where you're ready to pull that Band-Aid where it's no longer a side hustle and it's your main hustle.
Everybody has their own place for that.
Right.
I was fortunate that, I don't mind working a lot. I don't like just sitting still. I don't watch movies. I don't like do any of that stuff because I just always feel I need to be busy. And so that's just who I am. So I'm okay with working my job and then coming home, eating dinner with the family and working more. Like I like that. That's exciting to me. So that's how I did it, but I only did it for the first year and a half. Once I started getting into grocery stores, I basically said to myself, like, let's give this a shot. Let's try this. And the two really really important parts is that I was fortunate enough to have a wife that made money that could pay our bills,
Right.
and so that was good. And so that also means that I also did not have to take any money out of the company. And I think what I see a lot of people like really failing at is that they're trying to pay themselves, oh, I was making 50,000 a year, so I'm going to pull $4,000 out every month because I need to supplement my income with my loss of income. That's
Right.
going to be really tough. I don't know how somebody can do it like that, but they do. I mean, some people do. I didn't, and I probably couldn't have. Cash flow was
Uh,
tough enough to, with the years moving on, cash flow was really tough at some points, and you got to really try to save it. So again, I was lucky enough to not have to pay myself until about, gosh, maybe I don't think I paid myself the first like 5 years of working.
It's a very common thread I've heard from others just like you. So tell me about, you talk about getting into retail, from when you're getting into farmers markets to when you get into your first retail store. That's got to be a big step. Can you tell us, a little bit about what it took to get into that retail store, or maybe what you remember about that kind of initial first win? I would suspect that's got to be a really good feeling too, like getting to that stage and getting going.
Yeah, I mean, one thing about me is I never really imagined it to get there. I just thought like farmers markets are cool and fun, and I'm, making a little cash that I could put in my pocket if I wanted to, but whatever, whatever. I didn't have like friends in the business or like mentors or anything like that. I just kind of winged it and did it myself.
yep.
So like it was never really a thought that that could actually happen. And then I started getting approached by like these small mom and pop stores that are all over the place, real cute things at these stores, and they're like, "Hey,
Mm.
we'd sell your salsa there." And I'm like, "Really?" Then it starts like thinking, "Oh, wow, that'd be cool. That'd be great." And and then I got my first grocery store, and it was my local one. And it was I lived in this part of town in Minneapolis called Linden Hills. And I did the Linden Hills Farmers Market all summer. And people at the end of the year, I started realizing they're coming up and they're like, this market is over. Like today is the last day. Where am I going to be able to find your stuff? And I'm thinking to myself, like, oh, I'm kind of glad it's over. I had a good run, but I'm ready to like get
Catch
back,
my breath.
catch my breath, get back to weekends, hanging out with the kids, blah 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 blah. And then I started realizing that's true. Like all these people that love this are now going to be, it's going to be 5 months because that's how it is in Minnesota. You don't have farmers markets really from you know early October to early May.
You bring up
So
we're a little spoiled down here in Texas. I didn't really kind of put that two and two together until you just brought that up. Of course, yeah, those 6 months there in the wintertime certainly don't allow for much in the way of farmers markets, I can imagine.
Exactly. So then I started thinking like, oh my gosh, that's right. And these people were coming up and buying like a case at a time of my stuff just to get it so they could have it, through the weekend. And to me, like I was always just happy when somebody would buy one. But when they'd buy
Right.
like 12 pack of it, I was like, oh my gosh, they do actually like, they're not just being nice, they like
Right.
it.
Right. Right.
And it's a great feeling. But so then I went to my local co-op. There's also a Linden Hills co-op. And I basically went and talked to the grocery manager and I said, hey, I did these farmers markets here all, you know, all summer. People loved it. They're wondering where they're gonna get it, but they're all from here because I was at the Linden Hills farmers market, so they all live around here. And if I could just tell them that it's here, they would come and buy it. And so I convinced them to do that. Now I had to deliver it, which wasn't a huge deal, but it's something you have to do early on again. And I do remember, and this is no lie at all, is when I walked in and saw it up on the shelf for the first time, I literally like had tears come to my eyes. Like
Well,
it
I
was
can
like,
imagine.
how in the hell did I do this? Like, and now it's funny to look back on that. Like that was, I mean, of course, all these are, every huge jump gets smaller as you make other jumps, but it was a huge jump at the time. It was like this huge thing and it was so emotional. It was like, this is like I actually did it. How did I do it? Like it was just so cool. And I still get excited. I still get real excited for wins like that. But that one in particular was like, holy moly, that I was just so proud, so happy, so humbled, you know,
Right.
on that.
So I'm curious, at that point, like that order, was that still something you guys, was that just, you and the family? Are you having employees at this stage, or is that, something you guys are again late, after dinner and on the weekends doing as a family at that point?
Oh, it was pretty much just family
Yeah.
at that point. It went about a year or more before I started having like a couple friends help out, twice a week for 5 hours each day, something like that. And it was much needed, um, but it also yeah, I just haven't had really much help. I didn't actually have my first employee until I moved into my own facility in June of 2019.
Perfect segue there. So that was kind of going to be my next question. So now you have your own facility as opposed to renting a commercial kitchen. Can you tell us a little bit about what that manufacturing process kind of looks like today compared to those early days? Do you guys have full scale filling lines now, and or are you doing kind of semi automatic? What kind of stage of manufacturing have you guys evolved to now?
Yeah, it obviously starts with a pot on the stove that you heat up to a certain temp, and then you scoop it out with with a measuring cup into like a pitcher type of thing, and then you have a little funnel and you pour it into a glass jar and you put the cap on, you turn it upside down. That's how it started, and then as time went on, the pots got bigger, and the scoops got bigger and stuff like that. And then moving into my own facility. Oh, then actually backing up, I did buy a hand pump filler when I was at the commercial kitchen, which is basically a piston that clamps onto the table and you sit down and you put a bottle underneath the little spigot type of thing and you pull the handle and the pressure pushes the sauce into the bottle,
Right.
and then you push it back and then you pull it again and push it, you constantly do that. So that was good, and that seemed really efficient because trying to pour into a hot sauce bottle is really hard because you always overfill it and then it spills, then you have to wipe up the neck and then it's dirty and then blah 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 blah. So that was great. But then we moved into our own place and I got a steam kettle, which was really awesome, which is basically a huge pot. It's an 80-gallon pot that is bracketed to the floor, and it heats, and it's kind of like a what is that? What do they call it? A double pot or what? How they melt chocolate and
Okay.
it,
Right.
bas- basically they steam the air in between two pieces of metal to heat my product, and it heats it really fast, and it heats it evenly, and it doesn't burn it, which is great.
Right.
So that was just huge. That was great. We're still filling with pumps. Then I bought an automatic pump where I hit a lever on the ground, and that was like, I just kept moving up, and then finally I sprung for the filling machine. Um, Things were going well, and I knew we just needed it. So now we have a full-on filling machine that fills it. We still manually cap everything, invert it, and then after the hold time, which is like a minute, whatever, we send it down the conveyor belt. It gets labeled. We throw it in a jar or into a box, and then put it on a pallet.
And then out the door. And I was, you got some pretty big heavy hitters here from what I saw last. Meyer, Target, Hy-Vee. Any new big names? To add that list this year for 2023. New supermarkets you guys are into.
Nothing yet. But we are shooting for. We're crossing. We had a really good meeting, and we're crossing our fingers for a large, kind of higher end grocer on the East Coast, and it runs through the South a little bit, and it would be a great win to get it. But I don't want to jinx anything,
Of
so
course.
we're just gonna wait and see what happens. And my other main goal is just to really try to increase my footprint at Target. So
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd say, we had your hot sauce in on our hot sauce challenge earlier a few months back, and your sauces I think were definitely some of the most popular, especially after the fact. Everybody was taking different sauces home. I have a handful of them at my house. Those 10x series that you do, I tell you, those are dangerous. I know a friend of mine accidentally put too much on some food one time in my house, and I had to throw the food away because he dabbed it like it was a regular hot sauce. So
oh my gosh.
yeah, no,
Yeah,
eh,
that stuff.
go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, it's funny how sometimes these things come about because, when I would make a really hot sauce or a very hot grocery store hot sauce, how about that?
Right.
People would be like, you would always have the people that come up and are like, I don't taste anything. What
Hmm.
is it even spicy? Is there anything to it? Blah blah blah. And you kind of look at them like, okay, well, fine. So then one day I just decided to make
Hold my beer, right? It's like hold my beer.
yeah,
I'm gonna make you
exactly,
one.
exactly. This is we're doing this, I guess. It's like, okay, it's on. So that's how those 10Xs came about. And you know what? There's I don't want to say surprisingly they're a big hit, but kind of surprisingly they're a big hit. People really like them, and they go
Yep.
through them, which is crazy that these people like this stuff this hot because it's so hot.
No, absolutely. No, they definitely. We took some of the guys by surprise. You had some pretty kind of macho guys that I think they kind of were brought down to earth a little bit at the end of by the time we were done with all the different sauces. So curious, do you have a favorite either salsa or hot sauce that you make out of all the ones that you do?
Um, I mean, the joke that we always say is that's like asking us who our favorite kid is. You know? But I do go in phases of liking, certain ones for a while, and then I move on to the next one, and then I move on to the next one. Um, the corn salsa is always just really, really good. I like that a lot, and it mostly because I can mix it with so much food. You can put
Hmm.
it in things. You can make it as a dip. You can do this, do that. But my traditional favorite is still just the black label machismo. I mean, I made that exactly. I made that recipe the way that I like salsa.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's I could sit down and eat a whole bunch of that if I had a chance. So
Definitely makes sense. So, like I said, I was doing a little bit of research, before our get together here, and I was looking through your Instagram. I have to ask just a question about here recently. You were, is Jada? Is that one of your daughters?
yeah,
I saw the video about the Carolina Reaper pepper. So I have to ask, what was that? Was that her bringing that about? Was that a little challenge there, or that was pretty impressive to see her willing to try?
Yeah, no, I can't, to be honest, I can't remember, but I'm pretty sure that I would not like taunt her to do it,
you're
type of thing.
you're a better dad than I am.
Well, um, I'm sure she was kind of like, I could do that, and I'd be like, no chance, and she'd be like, give me a try, and I'm like, no way, and she's like, let's do it, just a little one, and I'm like, you're crazy, let's do it then, fine, we'll do it. So and that's probably how it worked out. And then the older sister came out and had to prove herself too. I have a video that I didn't repost, but the older sister did it as well, and basically soaked her tongue because she just touched her tongue to it, just soaked it in a glass of milk, and she was like, I'm fine," even though her tongue is like dangling in a glass of milk. So anyway,
That's,
that's fun stuff, and nobody got hurt from it, and
yeah.
but now they can say they did it and whatever. It's kind of a little check for them.
Yeah, no, it makes for a good little, it's a cute little video. It reminds me, you bring up the milk. That's how the guys were when they were done. We ran out of milk. I had not bought enough milk preparing for it, and then at one point, one of the guys is resorting to drinking coffee creamer after our
Oh my God.
after our wing challenge. So, really great stuff. I really, that's a great little conversation we've had here, Bernie. Loved hearing your story. I'm a big myself. I've always been big on Shark Tank, and I just love entrepreneurs. And you remind me a lot of our own business owner and how he got started, and just kind of the progression and everything. It's just really cool hearing. So I appreciate you sharing some of those insights with us here for our audience. And we'll send this out. Did you? I want to give you a chance in case you want to. I know where folks can find your hots if they're not in Minnesota or near any of these. I do believe, because I think I've made a purchase online. Your website where they can find it if they want to order anything for mail order.
I mean, they can go to www.doubletakesalsa.com. If they just search Double Take Salsa online, they'll probably find it pretty quick. We also have some of our packs on Amazon.com as well as a lot of retailers in the Midwest, not as many in the South. But if any of your Southern listeners want to give a really, really good authentic salsa a try either the Verde Good, it's a green chili salsa, or the El Jefe. It's my most popular, super unique, because we smoke the peppers in house, grind it up with tomatoes, onions, and garlic, and it's just a really good salsa. So those are the two I would suggest trying.
And I'll even say, you brought up a good point. We were a little skeptical when we got a batch of hot sauces in from Minnesota, being from Texas. So we had a little, but I'll give you that. Definitely certified, just as good as any of the local salsas or hot sauces we can find here. I'll tell you, get into HEB. That's a great chain that we have here in Texas, and they have a great hot sauce selection. I think your product would fit in perfectly on that shelf. So again, thank you, Bernie, for your time.
Thank you so much for having me, and I've really enjoyed getting to know you guys a little bit more than just a sales transaction. So
I appreciate that, Bernie. Absolutely, same. Likewise, that goes both ways. So, have a great rest of your afternoon, Bernie. I'm sure you're going back to mixing batches and filling bottles, and we got that ink cartridge on its way to you. Okay.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right, thank you, everybody. Again, that was Bernie over at Double Take Salsa. You can find his products at doubletakesalsa.com, like he said. If you're not in the Midwest or Minnesota, to find it at your local retail store. Great products. I've tried them myself. I have several of his hot sauces and salsas at the house now. We thank you guys for joining us on this episode of the SNEED-CAST. As Alexa always likes to remind you, make sure you like, subscribe, hit that bell at the bottom for your notifications. Leave us some comments. Tell us what you like to hear from Bernie, if you got any feedback of your own, and any topics you want to hear in the future. We'll see you next time, guys.